what's it like to date a sex worker, right? And I think that too is a salubrious position to find yourself in, because it makes you confront your own pettiness about possession, right, of the other person's body, or mostly neoliberal ideas about possession and property, and like you really start to get over that stuff when you're dating a sex worker. So that's an unexpected boon to me from being in that position.
My name is Mistress Serene, and I have been in the BDSM community for over 20 years, and have worked previously as a pro-dom, and now I'm in the education side and teaching kink and BDSM techniques and protocols, and have fun events and do the kind of coaching.
I'm Shelly Cohen. I'm the transgender outreach liaison for SWAP LA. I have been involved in sex work for a little under 10 years, and I have been an activist for the same amount of time.
My name is Stacey Swim, and I have been working in the sex industry for 13 years.
Hi, I am Jessie Nicole. I'm the current director of the Los Angeles chapter of Sex Workers Outreach Project.
I'm a transgender woman, and I transitioned through LA Children's Hospital through their harm reduction program. So, and going through that, I felt like I had acceptance, and I felt like there was actually a place for me, and I felt legitimacy. So I guess the same thing can be said for healthcare and sex workers, is providing space, providing acceptance. And
I think we need to put health before morality and before judgment, and so we need to stop putting people in jail because they exchange sex for money.
The first thing that needs to happen is sex workers' rights and safety need to be seen as a priority, and that means educating both existing harm reduction organizations and also policymakers about the challenges that sex workers face, and really pushing home the message that sex workers are people and sex workers deserve human rights just like anybody else.
The biggest misconception about this work is that it's all great sex and having a good time. A lot of it is just talking, because men are marginalized as well, and our clients in any are marginalized. So the comfort and communication is probably 80% of the work. And being the oldest profession in the world, all of it is not illegal. There are women who are working legally in the sex work industry, and they should be acknowledged as such.
And I think it's a lot to do with shaming trans folks, men in the industry, queer folks in the industry. We're all marginalized in some point or another. So I think once that, it's such a broad question. I think once the shaming in general starts there, but I think it's happening. I really think it's happening. I think once the red light is turned off, because people don't realize that. We're here, we're people's sisters, we're people's friends, we're people's relatives. And I think once people realize that we are everywhere and we already pay taxes, we already do things, I think that might change the appearance of how people identify us.
There is no one thing that is the media.
Right.
So it's a little bit of both, where there's, on the one hand, a lot of popular media about saving sex workers and rescuing them from the industry. Then there's so there's the sex worker as victim. Then there's a lot of images of the sex worker as evil, manipulative criminal. And then mostly there's anonymous pictures of legs and heels. One of the biggest tools of sex workers' rights activists that we ask all of our allies is, please talk about this. Talk about it with your friends. If you can, talk about it with your family, with your colleagues. Even just changing the way people talk about sex work it's really, really helpful. So don't tell dead hooker jokes, and stop your friends from telling dead hooker jokes.
So I started working as an escort when I was about 19. I was in college, and I was
I was broke, and I had not that some of this details should matter, but I had a full scholarship. I had all my tuition paid for and a portion of my books. That did not mean I had any of my rent or food paid for, and part of that was because I was stupid and spent my money on stupid things. And I didn't really think about it that much at the time. It was just an online ad I answered, and I'm this guy, and I was like, in an hour I made I made my rent, basically. And so I started doing that sort of on and off, and I never thought of it as professional. I didn't think of myself necessarily as working. And I behaved in ways that I would advise young aspiring sex workers to never ever do. I made a whole bunch of mistakes, and I was very lucky that none of them turned out badly. And I did this on and off for about a year before it occurred to me that this is a part of my life that I should figure out how to deal with. When I moved to Chicago, and I was also not working consistently. I would take breaks for school, I would take breaks if I was dating someone, I would take breaks for major activist projects, which was part of the reason I didn't want to get a straight job, because I was a full-time student, a full-time activist, and I didn't want to be a full-time phone caller at the same time. I just didn't have time, and just didn't pay enough money to make it worth it. So eventually, around a little before the time I graduated from grad school, I decided that this was work that I wanted to get back into, but I wanted to do it much more seriously. So I signed up with an escort agency, and for the first time did work full-time. And it was good. I was lucky. I had a great agency. And then I started getting burned out, and then I met my partner, and I was like, all right, I'm going to take a break. And then that was almost 3 years ago, and I've not seen a client in person since.
Overview of what sex work is and what sex work activism is all about. I got started with the Los Angeles chapter of Sex Workers Outreach Project about 1.5 years ago. I've been the director. I moved to LA, and there really wasn't a chapter. So this has been a project to revitalize and really build the community from the ground up.